A political firestorm is brewing, and this time it's Labour under siege. Keir Starmer's government is being accused of turning the UK's farming sector into collateral damage with a controversial inheritance tax change that critics have dubbed the family farm tax. Outrage is pouring in from all sides: farmers, rural communities, businesses, and now even the general public. The outcry has grown so loud that a staggering 2 million people have signed a petition demanding a new general election, accusing Labour of breaking its promises and jeopardising Britain's future. What was meant to be a fresh start for Labour is quickly spiralling into a full-scale crisis. Now, in the last 24 hours, the backlash has reached fever pitch. Farmers are taking to the streets of London in protest, and business leaders are delivering scathing verdicts on Labour's economic policies. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer's dismissive response to the public's fury has only fanned the flames. Stick around as we unpack the details of this political debacle. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay ahead of this explosive story. It began innocuously enough, a small line in Labour's much-anticipated budget: changes to inheritance tax on family farms. According to the government, this would only impact farms worth more than £1 million. However, the devil was in the details, and critics quickly identified the unintended consequences. The Liberal Democrats, seizing on the discontent, commissioned a study that painted a grim picture. Nearly 60% of the public believe this tax change will lead to higher food prices, and nearly half of those surveyed said they'd have no choice but to opt for cheaper, potentially less nutritious food. Even more alarming, 20% of respondents indicated they would reduce their fruit and vegetable consumption altogether. Wendy Chamberlain, the Liberal Democrat chief whip, delivered a scathing critique of the policy. In an impassioned interview with GB News, she revealed that farmers from her constituency of North East Fife had travelled to London to express their outrage. These were not merely angry citizens, but people armed with hard evidence, having consulted accountants and lawyers who confirmed the devastating financial impact this policy would have on their livelihoods. "This isn't just about farms," Chamberlain declared. "This is about the knock-on effects for public health, local economies, and even the high street." The optics could not be worse for Labour. Images of farmers protesting in the heart of Westminster have flooded social media, with hashtags like "Save Our Farms" and "Labour Tax Scandal" trending nationwide. The frustration isn't just coming from rural areas. Urban Britons are increasingly concerned about rising food prices at a time when inflation was supposed to be easing. For a government that promised to protect working people, this move feels like a betrayal, and the public is making their anger known. While Labour attempts to defend its policy as a necessary step for funding public services, the backlash has broadened to include a growing number of business leaders. The Confederation of British Industry, CBI, recently held its annual conference, where its president, Rain Newton-Smith, did not mince words. She warned that Labour's tax hikes, including changes to national insurance, were creating an environment hostile to investment. Business executives lined up to echo her concerns, with Stuart Paver of Paver's Shoes revealing that the new taxes would cost his company £4.2 million, a burden that would force him to scale back expansion plans. The private sector's outrage is not limited to small and medium enterprises. Retail giants like Tesco, Amazon, and Next have also voiced their concerns, writing a collective letter to Chancellor Rachel Reeves warning of the impact these policies will have on prices for consumers. The message from the business community is clear: Labour's economic plans are jeopardising growth, and the tax burden is pushing companies to their limits. But the most damning blow to Labour's credibility comes not from businesses or farmers, but from the general public. Just 5 months after a landslide victory in the general election, Labour is facing a wave of resentment over broken promises. A petition calling for a new election has amassed over 2 million signatures, making it one of the most supported petitions in UK history. Accusing Labour of backtracking on key campaign pledges, the petition demands a reset, a chance for voters to hold the government accountable for what they see as a bait-and-switch. Keir Starmer's response has done little to quell the outrage. Speaking on ITV's This Morning, he dismissed the petition as an inevitable reaction from those who didn't vote Labour in the first place. "I'm not surprised there are calls for a rerun," he said nonchalantly. "That's not how our system works." While his remarks were technically accurate, they struck many as tone-deaf. particularly for a leader already under fire for breaking promises. The timing of this scandal could not be worse. Labour's landslide election victory was already being scrutinised for its narrow mandate. The party only secured 35% of the popular vote, the lowest for a majority government since World War II. Now, with trust eroding and opposition mounting, even some Labour supporters are beginning to question whether Starmer's government can survive its first year. Meanwhile, in rural communities, the sense of betrayal is palpable. For generations, farmers have operated on razor-thin margins, their livelihoods often dependent on policies that protect inheritance and family-run operations. To them, the so-called family farm tax feels like a direct attack on their way of life. Protesters have compared the move to cutting the heart out of rural Britain, a sentiment that resonates far beyond the farming community. Labour's leadership continues to insist that the tax changes are necessary to fund essential services, but even their own allies seem unconvinced. Kemi Badenoch, a prominent voice within the Conservative Party, has taken aim at Labour's handling of the economy. Speaking at the CBI conference, she warned that these policies are not just hurting businesses, but everyday people who will bear the brunt in the form of higher prices and lower wages. The government believes businesses can absorb these costs, but they're wrong. It's ordinary Britons who suffer, she said. To make matters worse, Labour's first budget has also drawn criticism for its broader economic impact. The lowering of the national insurance threshold, a key component of the budget, has hit profits across sectors, leading many companies to delay or cancel investment plans. Rain Newton-Smith summed it up succinctly. When you hit profits, you hit competitiveness. When you hit competitiveness, you hit growth. Amid this growing discontent, the government has attempted to highlight the positives of its budget, including increased funding for the NHS and schools. But these talking points have been drowned out by the uproar over broken promises and mounting costs. Even Rachel Reeves, once heralded as a pragmatic and effective chancellor, is now being painted as out of touch by her critics. As protests escalate, the political implications are becoming clearer. This is not just a policy disagreement, it's a crisis of confidence in Labour's ability to govern. The backlash is so widespread that even staunch Labour supporters are calling for transparency and a re-evaluation of the party's priorities. For Keir Starmer, this moment could define his leadership. Will he stand firm and weather the storm, or will he pivot in an attempt to regain public trust? One thing is certain, the stakes have never been higher. Labour's honeymoon period is officially over, and the road ahead looks perilous. With farmers, businesses, and everyday Britons united in their dissatisfaction, Starmer's government faces a battle for survival. The question now is whether they can salvage their agenda, or whether this scandal will be their undoing.